Shalom, shalom, from the city of peace, the Ir HaKodesh of Yerushalayim. My name is Pesach Levy. It all started by the bris bein Absarim in Parshas Lech Lecho, when HaKodesh Baruch Hu promised Avram Avinu to give Eretz Yisrael to his children and to the children of Yitzchak and Yankov Avinu. Yerushalayim, the center and the foundation of creation, the Nekuda Panimi of Klal Yisrael. When the world heard of the Churban Habayis, they did not believe that it actually happened, how such a city could be conquered and destroyed. The Chazal tell us that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu took Yerushalayim to heaven, Yerushalayim Shel Maila, and the Romans conquered a destroyed city. The Chazal does not let us forget about Yerushalayim. 3 times a day we say in our tefillos, Yishmai Nesrei, B'nai Yerushalayim, and our benching, Birchas Hamazon, we say Uvenei Yerushalayim. One must not forget what Yerushalayim was in the past and what Yerushalayim will be in the near future. In our tour, we'll try to capture a little of what Yerushalayim was, the beauty, the glory, and the holiness. And through the past, it'll give us an insight to the future. We all hope sincerely, and I'm mispalel, that Yibona HaMikdash B'Korov B'Yitzion B'Malei. Now we're on the southern side of Yerushalayim, looking towards the Mokim HaMikdash. This is the most gorgeous view of Yerushalayim from any direction, from where we are now. It says in Pesach that the Rebbeinu Shalom came to Avram Avinu and told him he should take Yitzchak to the Akedah. That was in the southern area of Eretz Yisrael. Elam Mokim Asher Eka, to the place that I will show you. We did not tell him where to go, just go. Avram Avinu took Yitzchak and he went northward. And it says, V'hi b'yom hashlishi, was the 3rd day. He left Hebron and he came to this point where we are now. And he sees in the distance, over where the golden mask is, a little bit to the right, he sees a strange cloud hanging over that spot. And he asks Yitzchak, do you see anything? He says, I see a strange cloud. Yes, Yishmael, I see nothing. So young Avram Avinu realized this was the spot that Yitzchak sees and Yishmael does not. So Avram says to Yishmael, the donkey doesn't see and you don't see. And and he takes Yitzchak Avinu, who we are here now, he takes him down into the valley, and across to the market, to where that golden mosque is. On the right side of the golden mosque is where the Akedah Yitzchak was. We have a Kabbalah in Yerushalayim. Vayhi b'yom hashlishi. Vayadas hamokim merachek is where we are standing from this direction. And why it took 3 days to come from the southern area to Yerushalayim, it should take a day and a quarter. As the Satan put obstacles in the path of Avram should not come to the Akedah. Therefore, to overcome these obstacles took him double the amount of time, 3 days. And also one sees, it says in Pesach that the Mokim Mikdash is like Seif of Shochei. And Rashi explains that the shoulder of an ox, the two shoulders are higher than the head of the ox, which is in the middle. The Shekhinah rests between the shoulders of the ox. If you look at the Yag of Yerushalayim from this point, we can see very clearly what the Pesach is telling us. On both sides we see two mountains to the right and a mountain to the left. And in between where the golden mosque is was the Beis HaMikdash. A little lower than the two hills, like the shoulder of an ox. The shoulders are higher and the Mokim HaShekhinah is a little bit lower. Over there to the right, where the hill to the right is, that's Har HaZeisim. You see the large white area below the top, below the peak, and that is the cemetery of Har HaZeisim. Further on top of the mountain, a little bit to the left of Har HaZeisim, you can see the white buildings, and that's Har HaTzofim, the university in Har HaTzofim. On the left side over here, we have the new city of Yerushalayim. Directly below us, we see a valley going along, and this is the continuation of Nachal Kidron, the famous Nachal that's mentioned so much in the Gemara. It starts by Kever Shimon HaTzadik, flowing through the desert and all the way to the Dead Sea. Where the golden mosque is in front of us, that was the Kachei HaKadoshim of the Beis HaMikdash. The entire Beis HaMikdash was in front of the golden mosque towards us in this order. The back was the Kachei HaKadoshim. In front of it was the Heichal. Then came the Mokim HaMizbeach where the sacrifices were made. And then came the Edes Kahanim, the Kahanim section, as you saw the men's section, as Noshim, the women's gallery, all towards us. You know that the Golden Mosque, which was where the Beis HaMikdash was, is not in the center of the Har HaMoriah. It's more towards the right, which is the north, than the left, which is the south. It's more towards the back, which is the west, than the east, which is in front of us. And that's the way it should be. The Beis HaMikdash was not in the center of the Har HaMoriah, was more to the north than the south, and to the west than the east. And since there was a lot of empty area on the southern side of the Har HaBayis, so therefore, B'zman Beis HaMikdash, there were little cottages between the gold and black dome, where they used to keep the kalim for the avoid of the Beis HaMikdash. And there was also a shul on the Har HaBayis where people used to daven. The Beis HaMikdash was not a place for tefillah, it was a place for avodah, for the kabbanos. And they daven in the shul, and there was a shul between a gold and a black dome, the Yerushalayim tells us. Now you'll notice over here that in the front of the Beis HaMikdash, in front of the mountain, is a large, long wall. And in the middle of the wall, a little bit to the right, you see, it gets a little bit higher. There's an outline of two gates closed off with stone. And that is called the Shari Rachamim. And we have a Messiah, the time of the Churban Beis HaMikdash. The Shekhinah went out through the eastern side, and Mitzvah when Mashiach will come and go back to the same side that he left. And since before Mashiach comes, Eliyahu Novi has to come, and Eliyahu the Kohen can't go into a cemetery. And therefore the Arabs, to prevent Mashiach from coming, they built a cemetery. You can see the white stones in front of the wall, built by the Arabs to prevent Mashiach from coming. However, this is all Goyish Kavadim, and Mashiach will find a way to go through. I also should mention that the Kaftir Ferach tells us, the famous Rishon, that this is one of the two gates that Shlomo Melech built in the Beis HaMikdash, called the Shari Gremlin Chasadim. One gate was for Chasanim, the other gate was for Avelim. When they went through, if it was a Chasan, they were Masameachim. And if he was Chalil a novel, they were Menachem him. And those are the two gates that we see of the Shari Rachmim. That's one of the reasons why we have enough roof is from this minig that they had in the base of Mikdash. In front of the Golden Mosque, a little bit to the right, was a place where the Sanhedrin sat in the base of Mikdash. A bit to the left, in front of the Golden Mosque, was the place of the Mizbeach, where the sacrifices were made. And that's where the Akedas Yitzchak was. And that's where Noach made his sacrifice when he came out of the Teva. And it has to be very meduyak, the Gemara says, and Shlomo Melech built the base of Mikdash in the exact same spot. When he even came back to build the second base of Mikdash, they also had Nevi'im, Chagi, Malachi with them, and they told him the exact spot of the Mokim HaMizbeach. Now, right now we're on Har HaZeisim. Har HaZeisim means olives. At one time it was full of olive trees. Most olive trees are destroyed today. Only near the bottom of the mountain we see some of the olive trees. You can see a little bit over there to your right. The time of the base of Mikdash, there was no calendar or luach when they went out to look for the new moon. And I think it was important everyone to know when the Chodesh was, so therefore had a system of torches, masos from mountain to mountain. And the first torch, when they were Makar to Chodesh in the Sanhedrin in the base of Mikdash, the first torch went up over here on Har HaZeisim. Second torch went up on Har Satava and Gefina, and all the way to Bavel. All went in one direction, northeast, towards Bavel, which is Iraq of today, because that was the issue of Klal Yisrael at that period. Also, the Hakrov of the Paraduma. The Hakrov of the Paraduma took place on Har HaZeisim. Such a spot that the Kohen able to show and shechting and burning able to look, turn about and look directly into the Heichal, the opening. Over there to your right, you can see the whitish wall. Right in front of the whitish wall over there was the place where the Paraduma was made. Now also the Gemara says in Pasuk, V'hoyo b'yoyim hahu, it will come a time, Oimei d'raglo v'al Har HaZeisim. Hashem will put his 2 feet on the Mount of Al. Of course, now we're speaking about the Milchama of Gog and Magog. We're going to break out in the near future. And when all the Goyim and the Goyish nations are going to come to attack Yerushalayim. The Masada from the Malbim brings down that the Goyim will attack 3 times. On the 3rd attempt, they will succeed and they will conquer Yerushalayim. At that time, it tells us, Oimei d'raglo v'al Har HaZeisim. An earthquake will break out and split this mountain in 2 from east to west. Gay Godel made a tremendous valley will come into being, and Eden were able to escape from Yerushalayim through the crack in Har HaZeisim and all the way to the desert behind us. For 45 days, it says in the Medrash, Eden will be in the desert, and then as Galas HaMashiach will take place in the desert. All the Mefarshim learn Pasha Kipshutei, an earthquake will break out. However, the Baba now learns that this nevuah is a mashal, because the way the Navi describes it will be some sort of an atom war. The Yerushalayim is going to be dark as night in the middle of the day, and from the heavens above the fire and the ice and brimstone are going to come down. The killer Goyim are going to come to attack Yerushalayim, and therefore, since a commotion will take place so close to Har HaZeisim, it will seem to everyone that the mountain is splitting, but the mountain will not. And now we're moving along on Har HaZeisim to the Kivrei HaNevi'im. The Gemara tells us that Klal Yisrael had Kaflaim Kiyotzim Mitzrayim Nevi'im. The nevuah that was set for the future was written down, and the nevuah that was not for the future was not written down. Our Memches Nevi'im that we have is because it was written for the future. In this cave we're going to go in is buried over 50 Nevi'im, 50. Of the ones that we know about, there are only 3, Chagi, Malachi, and Zechariah. Those are the Teleas of the Treyas Nevi'im, who in the time of the Churban Bayis Rishon went to Golus for 70 years and came back to build the second base in Mikdash. The others, we do not know who they were. We call them Bnei HaNevi'im because the nevuah was not for the future. As we go down the steps, this is a man-made cave dug out 2,700 years ago, and we know about this cave from the Riyah Kodesh. There are 3-4 Makom Sakdoshim in Yerushalayim that we know from the Riyah Kodesh, and this is one of them. And this cave is a circle. You started where we are now, and we walk around in a circle. We come back to the same place where we started. You'll notice as we go around that there are niches in the walls. The Gemara calls them kuchens. And they're narrow on the outside and long inside, cut out from the rock of the stone. And they put the body into the kuchens, and that's how they were buried. There are 50 kuchens and 50 Nevi'im. And on the side of the small cave, on the side of the cave, where the other Nevi'im are buried, the Chagim, Malachi, and Zechariah. Har HaZeisim is a burial place for Klal Yisrael throughout all generations. Even as Man Bayis Rishon, it was a mokim for Kvuda, as we see from the Kivri Nevi'im. We have a Messiah that whoever is buried on Har HaZeisim is potter for Chibet Keva. What is Chibet Keva? Normally a person, after 20 years, is put into the ground and goes through certain sufferings. Those sufferings is a kapara for the Avedas the person did when they were alive. That's called Chibet Keva. Potter for Chibet Keva means the body does not suffer, and Hashem forgives the Avedas as if the body did. And that's why Har HaZeisim was the most chashuv spot for Jewish burial for Klal Yisrael that all generations into this very, very day. And right below us you see the Kvarim are laid out on the mountain. As we go further down the mountain, we come to the cave of Reb Gershon Kiteva, the Talmud of the Heilige Baal Shem Tov and the brother-in-law of the Baal Shem. And he's buried together with his son and his Einikel, his grandchild, tzaddikim of the generation going back 250 years ago. And there are thousands and thousands of tzaddikim buried on Har HaZeisim from all generations and all periods. Zechusam Yogein Aleinu. Right now we came to the cave of the Heilig Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim HaKadosh. He lived in Yerushalayim about the same time as the Baal Shem Tov lived, about 250 years ago. This is the cave in front of us here. And the Heilig Baal Shem said that he is the highest madrega one can reach in Torah Lishmo, the Yerushalayim HaKadosh. And the Baal Shem said he's also the Ruach of Mashiach, is the Heilig Yerushalayim. And it was a terrible Eisar in Eretz Yisrael. The Germans they were afraid of to come into the city. At that time, the Hashat and the Rebbe was still alive. And it came the yahrzeit of the Heilig Yerushalayim was Tes Vov. Tammuz is the yahrzeit, and thousands of people come every year. And at that time, the Hashat and the Rebbe came with his people to the cave, and he turned around to his people and he said, "They kommen nicht, the Germans are not going to come." Later on, they asked the Hashat and the Rebbe, how does he know the Germans are not going to come? So he said, he saw written on the Matzeva of the Heilig Yerushalayim, the Oisius Yud K Vav K, the Shem Havaya, the Shem of Rachamim. You know the Germans are not going to come. Because the next day the British pushed back the Germans in the desert, and they never arrived in Eretz Yisrael. As soon as the Heilig Yerushalayim passed away in the old city, the two walls of his Beis Medrash where he used to sit in the corner came together and closed off his seat. No one should be able to sit on his seat again. As soon as he passed away in the old city, Arabs took over his apartment. Every Arab who moved in died. For close to 200 years, the apartment was empty. No one would move into it until the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon came, and they were the Mendel Shklava, and they moved into the apartment and they were able to live in it. Surrounding the Yerushalayim's cave, you'll notice that there are several kvarim, 1, 2, and the third one. These are all the Rebbetzins of the Yerushalayim HaKadosh. His brother passed away without children, and he was miyavim his brother's wife. That's why he has more than one. It says in Pashas, it says in Yerushalayim HaKadosh, in Pashas Devarim, that the name of Mashiach is Chaim. Hashem said he's the Ruach of Mashiach. We hope he'll get up soon. And the Shatan has said under the Yerushalayim HaKadosh, when Mashiach will come, B'tchias HaMeisim, he'll be the Rosh Yeshiva. Between 48 and 67, the Arabs were digging up literally all of Har HaZeisim. You'll notice from the road ahead of us over there to the road, all the way till here, there are no kvarim. They're all dug up between 48 and 67. On June 4th, Sunday morning of 67, the Arabs started to dig up the cave of the Yerushalayim HaKadosh. As they had to dig it near here, the Arab tractor fell over. The Arab driver was killed. The next day, the 6-day war broke out. The Yerushalayim's cave has never been touched. When I came here a few days after the war, The tractor was right next to the cave, right over there, right where the little space is in front of us. In this area, there are a lot of kavodim of tzaddikim. We have the Menlish Galava, which is right over there. He's the Talmud Muvik of the Vilna Gaon. Behind us, we have the famous Pesach, the Pri Chodosh, and other tzaddikim are all around us as well. Right above us, you'll notice, coming out from the wall above, there's a pass. There's like a line with little grass in it above. Some say that this was a bridge, remains of a bridge. It says all over Shas that there was a bridge coming out from the Har HaBayis going all the way to the top of Har HaZeisim. And this was a bridge for the Paraduma. And with a tremendous bridge over the entire valley going all the way from one side to the other. Gemara says in the end of Yom used to build a new bridge every year. The Kohanim Gedolim were very rich for their own covered. However, according to the Gemara, this doesn't fit 100%, that the bridge should have been more further in, facing the Beis HaMikdash. We came down to the bottom of Har HaZeisim. We see in front of us very important monuments. I'm going from left to right. The monument all the way to our left is called Yad Avshalom. Avshalom was the son of David HaMelech and revolted against his father David. And he chased David out of Yerushalayim and he became a king for 6 months. In the 6-month period that he was a king in Yerushalayim, he built this monument in his own honor. It says in Pesach he had 3 sons and a daughter. The 3 sons died while he was alive. He had only 1 daughter left alive. He was afraid he's not going to have a name after him. So therefore, during the 6 months, he built this matzeva in his own honor. We know this from the Ari HaKodesh that he's not buried here. Avshalom was buried where he was killed in Eivah Yarden when he was riding on a mule through the forest, and his beautiful hair he never got caught into the tree. And the mule kept running him and hanging from the tree above to the earth below, and while he was hanging, David jumped, got a sword, and he killed Avshalom while he was hanging from the tree, and he's buried where he was killed in Eivah. This is strictly a monument that it should not be forgotten. It's called Yad, Rashi explains in Divrei Hayom, because at one time there was a hand of stone on top of the monument. Now we see that it's all flat on top. And the reason why, because one of the conquerors of Yerushalayim, with his cannon, he blew off the hand of Avshalom, who went against his father, David. He was a very famous Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. His name was Reb Chaim Shmulevitz. And he used to come to the monument of Yad Avshalom, and he used to say, it says in Pesach, when Avshalom was hanging from the tree, the Gehenna opened up under him and he's falling into the Gehenna. And David started to make the Gewaldike Hesped, and he said, B'ni Avshalom, Avshalom B'ni. He said 7 times B'ni, and every time he said B'ni, he took him out of 1 madrega of Gehenna. So he said 7 times B'ni Avshalom, he took him out of 7 madregas of Gehenna. And then David said, B'ni Avshalom, the 8th time, and took him into Gan Eden. Even though such a terrible son who wanted to kill his own father, Avshalom. Nevertheless, at the end, David had touched Rachmanis on him. He took him out of the lowest madregas of Gehenna and brought him into Gan Eden. And Chaim Shmulevitz used to say, the burnish Shalom, we're your children, Avinu Shebashamayim. And we're not such good children. We're not Makayim the mitzvah like one should, but you should have Rachmanis on us, like David had Rachmanis on his son, Avshalom. Gewaltige Limutzchus für Klal Yisrael. Von Reb Chaim Shmulevitz Zechaim Levrachim. Von mir, Rosh Yeshiva. The second monument, which is to the right, you see there's a cave with 2 pillars in the front. And this is called Beis Chofshet, it says in Malachim Beis. And there was a king of Yerushalayim, his name was Uzziah Melech, and sometimes called Azariah. From the Malchus Beis David, he walks into the Beis HaMikdash, he started to sacrifice the Ketaitis in the base of Mish, and the Khan goes, what are you doing with the Ketaitis? We the Khan, we do the Avodah, your kingdom, Malchus. He didn't listen, it kept happening, he broke out with boils on his father and became a Mitzvah. And since he couldn't be a king any longer because he couldn't deal with people, and so therefore they chiseled out a place for him and how to Zaysim he should be. And his son Yasim became the king at the time, it says in Pesach. And the Dak explains it's called Beis Chavshit because Chavshit means free. He was free from the oil Hamalchus, from the oil of the kingdom. And then later on, he took out, for the rest of his life, Uzziah was in the cave over here until he passed away. He passed as a Mitzvah. They buried him next to the cave of David HaMelech, but in a separate cave, not together with David, but in a separate cave since he died as a Mitzvah. And then the family of Kahanim of Choziah took over this cave, and they used it as a burial place. There were 24 families of Kahanim. David HaMelech made each going to have an equal chance to do the Avodah of the Beis HaMikdash. And they took it over the family of Choziah and used it as a burial place for themselves. And you notice over here, it's very hard to see, but you notice that above the two, in the stone above the two pillars, in between, there's scratches written into the stone. And what it says, Yochanan, Eliezer, Choni, B'nai Choziah. It is the burial place of the family of Kahanim of Choziah. Now further to the right, we have another monument that comes to a point on top, and this is the cave of Zechariah Hanavi. This is Zechariah ben Yehoyada Hanavi, and this is a monolithic stone. It's not a stone that's brought from somewhere else and built over here. This is Har HaZeisim itself, chiseled away with all the decorative stones and all that we see. You can notice the color of the stone on top, the same color as the stone surrounding it. Zechariah gave the Musay in the Kinnis of Tisha B'Av, Nerag b'Migdash Kayim v'Novi. They killed Zechariah Novi in the Beis HaMikdash, and there were over 5 Vedas that Derek Gemara says he was a Kohen Gadol in the Beis HaMikdash, and he was a Novi. It was Shabbos and Yom Kippur. They brought out the Babel Wolf for 200 years till the time of the Churban Bayis. Rishon Nevuzad, and the general of the Babylon army comes in and he sees the blood bubbling in the floor. He asked him what this was. They're kind of ashamed to say they killed him because they gave them Musa. It's only the blood of the animals. And Nevuzad took thousands upon thousands of animals and killed them on the blood of Zechariah. They're not sinking to the earth. And they said to the Ghanaian, tell me what this was, I have you all killed. They forced to tell him that there was a Kayan, they killed him. And for 200 years the blood is bubbling on the floor. The Gemara says Nevuzad took men, he took women, he took children, he took hundreds of thousands of Eden and killed them right next to the cave of Zechariah Novi. B'yayim echad, the one stone, b'sela echad, and b'emek HaMelech in this valley, and the blood did not sink in the ground until he finally picked up his eyes, stabbed him, he said, I have to kill Gans. Claudius, so the blood will quiet down. And the mother started to quiet down into the ground. Then the Nevuzad had to hear the tshuva, and he went ahead and he converted to Yiddishkeit, and he became a Get Tzedek because of the blood of Zechariah Hanavi. And you will notice, right next to the cave of Zechariah Hanavi, there's a small few steps. There's an opening into the Beis Chavshit. There's a thick, black, red substance right into the walls and on the roof of the cave, and the says part of the blood, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands that Nevuzad killed right next to the cave of Zechariah Hanavi. This cave in the middle of Har HaZeisim, you notice, with the open big mouth, and is called the cave of Bas Paroi. Moshe Rabbeinu's Menekes. She later became a Giyodis, and she came into Eretz Yisrael, and she passed away. She's buried in this cave. She took a site. It's called Bas Paroi. Now at the end of the valley, you notice over here, you see the road curves around towards the end. Near the very end, you see there's a building on the right side in the spring called the Mei Shiluach and the Mei Gichain. And when Shlomo Melech became a king, they made the anointment for Shlomo Melech in the valley. Even though Shlomo did not need the Mashiach because he was a Melech, Ben Melech was a Kwabush, his brother who should be the king. So David said he should make it in any event, was made in the valley. This mikveh is also, this water, the spring is also known as the mikveh B'Shmuel Kohen Gadol. And we say in the Kinnis of Tisha B'Av, and we say in the Musaf Yom Kippur, the Asari Arug Malchus, Tihei Rabbi Shmuel Atzmoi, Yeshua purified himself. All our money went up into heaven. V'shomim achori aparagud. Kibul tzadikim v'yedidim ma'amakeil. Which mikveh did he use? Where was Matthias himself? The spring of water down in the valley in the Meishiluach. There's a mitzvah in the Torah when you makiv a carbon, there's a mitzvah to spill wine on the Mizbeach. On Sukkot, anybody not only spilling wine, but spilling water as well as wine. And the Nisa Chamayim and the Simcha Beis, whatever took place right in front of us over here, right above us is the eastern wall of the Harabayas. Right inside the wall, the Pirch of the guy was standing on top of the sulam with 8 torches in the hand. The wall of one close with the other. The Holy Shrine was lit up. All night long, the singing and dancing went on and on and on. As it came towards morning, the cloud went out from the eastern side of that ice. He went down to the valley, all the way down. He took the water from the spring. He started to climb up the hill. The sun was starting to rise in the morning. They started to make the first sacrifice to come Tamar Shel Shacharis. He was climbing up the hill. And as he came into the base of Migdash, he went to a separate gate called the Shadamoyim next to the Mizbeach. And as he came in, he spilled the water on the Mizbeach. The Simcha took place as he went towards the spring throughout the entire night, and every night of Sukkot, the Simcha took place. Misha Simcha Beis Shreivah Simcha Meyamav, whoever dance participates had a gewaldige joy, never saw a joy in his life. In front of us, we have here this very deep valley, and this valley has 2 names. Either called the Nachal Kidzain, or it's called the Emek Yehoshephet. It says in Pesach in Yirmiyahu that Yirmiyahu Navi was giving Moshe to the Yidden of Yerushalayim. At that time, they were Ovdei Avodah Zarah, and he says to them that you believe in these idols. The end is going to be that they're going to burn these idols that you believe are on top of your body, on top of your corpses and your remains. This whole valley in front of us is all full of kvarim, going back all the way from the time of the first Beis Hamikdash. And every time they wanted to clean out the Avodah Zarahs in Yerushalayim, they would throw that into the valley and burn on top of the corpses and the people that were buried in the valley. However, more important to us, this valley is called the Emek Yehoshephet. Chazal say from Lashon Mishpat, to judge, because in this valley Hashem will take judgment. And the Kama and the Goyim are going to come to attack Yerushalayim. On top of Hadazesim, we spoke about the union of Muhammad of Gog and Magog, but this is where it's going to take place in this valley. There'll be so much dead from these Goyim are going to attack that it says in tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Goyim will die in this valley. There'll be so much that it'll take 7 months to bury them in mass graves, it says in Pesach. Hashem will take event. I don't know where Yidden are suffering today from the hands of these Goyim, but that all generation of Yidden have suffered, the time of the Churban Abayas and the Spanish Inquisition and the Hitler era and so on, and the Gzeres Tachantat. Hashem will take revenge on these Goyim who are going to attack in the valley. And during the 7-month period before they have a chance to bury these Goyim, it says in the end of Yeshayim Samach Vav, the Eibishter will call out to the beasts of the fields and to the Eifers HaShemayim to go into the valley and to feast on remains of these Goyim who are going to die in this valley. And during the 7-month period before they have a chance to bury all these Goyim, when the Umais Huwailim will be Oileragel to a new base in Migdash above, they're going to come down into the valley, see the Nisim in the floors that HaKadosh Baruch Hu did to Klal Yisrael, did for Klal Yisrael in this valley. They're going to send out messengers from here throughout the distant island into the far north, every one of the miracles that Hashem did. And because of these miracles, will come to Molihu what is there. And because of these miracles, that's why the Chacham were Mesakin, Yiskadal, the Yiskadash, the Kaj that we say because of the Nisan and Floys will take place in the near future in this valley, in the Emek Yehoshephet. Right now by the southern side of the Mokim and Migdash. This is the southern wall of the Harabayas. In the corner to the right is the eastern wall. This is the southeastern corner of the Mokim and Migdash. It's known in the Gemara as the Ophel. And the Gemara tells us for such a tremendously high wall, there's man base in Migdash. Even the archaeologists of today claim it was at least double the height when we see it. Bisman Beis Hamikdash, and according to the Chazal was even much higher than that. Somebody was standing on top of the wall with a spear in his hand. Somebody was standing on the bottom, looking up towards the top. The one on the bottom was seemed to the one on top as big as a box, so a tremendous height of the wall itself. One doesn't give any special reason why this wall was so extremely high, but seems a very logical reason would be. You even tell us that there was a high fortress and a tower right along the southern side to spy into the Makom Mikdash built by the Greeks and also used by the Romans. So it seems that the Jews built this wall very, very high to block the view from the Greek tower into the Makom Mikdash. Since see the Jews are revolting, are having a conspiracy behind their back. In the valley down below is the time of the Melech Levy, people called the Yevusi. These Yevusiites were descendants of Avimelech. The Melech made a pact with Avram, it says in Pashas Lech Lecho, for 3 generations, one will not touch the other one's children. When Yeshua conquered the country, the 3rd generation was still alive, the pact with Avram was in force. Yeshua cannot conquer these people. The time of David and Melech, that generation passed away, it was hundreds of years later. And David went ahead and conquered this whole valley from this Yevusiites, and this became known as Ir David. And David's palace, Yerushalayim's palace, and the Chavim were all down in this valley down below. That was Bisman Bayis Rishon. However, Bisman Bayis Sheni, things were very different. There were no Malchus Beis David, and were the kings, and there was no city of David. And down the valley was known as the lowest city, the Ir Tachtona, and that was the heart of the Frum Yerushalayim. In this valley lived the Talmid Chachamim and the Gedolei Yisrael and Tzaddikim, all lived in the valley. So automatically, the main entrance and the main exit from the Yerushalayim and from the valley into the Makom Mikdash was on the southern wall. And there were 2 gates because it was closer to their home. And there were 2 gates. One was an entrance, the other was an exit. Both gates together was known as the Shari Chulda, because Chulda Nevi used to sit here to say Nevuah to the woman Yerushalayim. And that's what it was called on her name. And even after she passed away, the name remained. And here we can see the 2 gates of the Shari Chulda. Directly ahead of us, we see the outline of 3 gates. Closed off with stone, that's the entrance of the Shari Chulda. Over there to the left, under the black dome, you'll notice there's a wall coming out like my hands, like this. A wall coming out, that's only a Turkish wall. Where the 2 walls meet right on top, you can see it looks like a reish. A piece of the stone looks like a reish coming out from the wall. What you are seeing actually is a gate, like my hands, a gate. And here the Turkish wall is coming in and closing off the gate. And all you are seeing is the side of the gate, under the black dome, the exit of the Shari Chulda. You notice over there under the black dome, there's a large plaza, white marble steps. That was the original staircase where Yidden used to be Eile Regel from the city into the Makom Mikdash. Bisman Abayis, that staircase was at least 3 times wider than it is today. It's only 1/3 of the original size. It continued on from where we see under the black dome, past the outline of the 3 gates to the right, and under to the left, under the black dome to the left. On top of the staircase is a flat surface, and that was a street running along the entire length of the southern wall of the Har HaBayis. And now we have a very clear idea how Yidden used to be Eile Regel Bisman Abayis. They came from the valley, Bisman Bayis Sheni used to come from the valley where they lived to where we are standing here. That time it wasn't as steep as it is today. And they went directly in front of us, up the staircase, into the outline of the 3 gates, the entrance of the Shari Chulda. The Har HaBayis, you only go to your right and never to your left. They went to their right, to the front of where the Golden Mosque is now. If that had been market of a korban do and avoided, they went into the Beis Hamikdash. If not, they went around the Beis Hamikdash where the Golden Mosque is, and around like a large circle to where the black dome is now, down the staircase, to the gate, and back to the home in the valley. A tremendous circle around the Makom Mikdash. And what you see over here remains of walls and buildings and so on along over here. These are all mostly Goyish buildings built after the Churban HaBayis by the Romans. But what's important over here is there's a lot of mikvois. There's about 50, 60 mikvois in this area along the southern side. Some of the mikvois are very clear and some are not. And some are built up with the Roman buildings on top of the mikvois. And in the basement of these the Roman houses, you can see the remains of the mikvois from Bisman Habayis. Only building which has any importance along over here is towards the end of the wall, where the road curves around to the left. they find a very large structure, some sort of an institutional type of a building, which they claim goes back to Bezman Bayis Rishon. Okay, this wall in front of us here, to my right, this is the Yevusi wall around the entire valley. And it's mentioned that this is in time of David and Melech, the group here in the valley called Yevusi, and this is the Yevusi wall going. And this is only the remains of it, but it went originally around the entire valley down below. And Yerushalayim is Mekefes Chaimim, Yemais Yeshua Benun from this wall. This wall is close to 3,000 years old. Where this church is, this is our Messiah is the opening of Gehenna in Yerushalayim. The Gemara says that Gehenna had 3 openings, and one is somewhere close to Yerushalayim. The church is as our Messiah is the opening of Gehenna, and that's why the minhag in Yerushalayim is when someone passes away and they want to bury him in Harazesim, they don't walk along over here past the Gehenna area, but they run with the niftar very quickly past the Gehenna. And if somebody is a chashiv a person, they carry the body to the top of Harazesim, to bring him down from the top to the place of the burial to avoid the area of Gehenna. In the mountain of Hebron, which is further south behind us, there are 3 pools of water called the Brei Shlomo, Solomon's pools. And that area, Rashi explains in Zeis HaBrocha, is Chov Beis Amma, about 45 feet higher than Yerushalayim. So therefore Shlomo Melech built a canal to bring those waters in from the Brei Shlomo, which is better known to us as Mayonos Ein Itam. It's mentioned many times in Tanakh and the Gemara, and Yom as well. To bring that water in to the Beis HaMikdash. And it was used in the Beis HaMikdash by the Kohanim to be tovel. There's Man Bayis Rishon, it was used in the Yam Shel Shlomo, a large pool of water standing on 12 statues of sheep. There's Man Bayis Sheni, it was in the base of Parava, the base of Kaisis. The first Tvila for the Kohen Gadol and Yom Kippur was in the waters of Brei Shlomo and the Mayones Ein Itam. And here's where the water used to flow, from the mountains of heaven further south, and here's a map. On the ground is a map. You see where the water starts flowing, it winds around, and it's always a little bit higher. It's always a little bit higher here. Here one can see if we look down in, the water used to flow through here, and it continues on all the way to Yerushalayim and into the Beis HaMikdash. The water was still flowing till the 1920s, and then it was stopped by the British mandate. There was water from other places in Yerushalayim, but this is the famous Mayones Ein Itam. One of the largest Radashas in Shas and Yuma is to explain how this water was able to flow from the mountains of Hebron and all the way in to the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, now in front of us over here in the distance, in the desert you see a high flattish mountain, the highest peak in the flattish. It looks like a volcanic mountain out in the desert. And this is where the Sela Zazel was made in the time of the Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash with 2 goats. And they made a girdle which should be thrown down the mountain, the Lazazel, and the other was sacrificed on the Mizbeach. And that high mountain we see in the distance is where the Sela Zazel was made. The Kafta V'Fedach tells us, the famous Rishon, south of Yerushalayim. Okay, over here, in front, on the top of the hill over here to the left, we have Har Tzion, the cave of David HaMelech. Right below it to the right is a deep valley in front of us. It's called the Gei Ben Hinnom. In the time of the first Beis HaMikdash, there were Ovdei Avodah Zarah. And there was one idol called Moloch where they used to burn the children to this Avodah Zarah. And this took place over here in the valley in the Gei Ben Hinnom. It says in Pesach, Menashe Melech Yehuda burnt his son to the Avodah Zarah, to the Moloch in this valley. The Radak explained that this Avodah Zarah looked like a statue made of metal with outstretched hands. But you put the baby on the outstretched hand to make a fire below from the heat of the metal, and the fire below the child would burn to death. And while this was taking place, the priests of the Avodah Zarah would play lots and lots of instruments to make loads of noise that the parents should not hear the crying and the suffering of the child while being burnt to this idol. And that's why the doctor explains it's called Gei, the valley Ben Hinnom of sighing, because in the valley the child was sighing, crying while being suffering to this Avodah Zarah that took place Bizman Bayis Rishon in the Gei Ben Hinnom. Now over there to the left, we have a valley on the other side of the road, and today it's called the Brechat Sultan, but it's better known to us as the Emek HaBocha, the Valley of Crying, because after the Churban Habayis, there was always a minhag to be Yoel Regel to Yerushalayim. There was no mitzvah because there was no Beis HaMikdash, but there was always a minhag, even after the Churban, to be Yoel Regel on the Shleish Regalim and Pesach, Shavuot and Sukkot to Yerushalayim. And as they came close to the city, they would stop off and cry for the Churban. And that's why this valley, under the walls of Yerushalayim, is called the Emek HaBocha, the Valley of Crying. Because here they used to stop off to cry because of the Churban Habayis. Okay, in front of us we have Shah Yafa, which is one of the gates of the old city of Yerushalayim. And it gets its name because before the advent of cars and buses, there was a path starting from over here, going all the way to the port of Yafa near Tel Aviv. That's why we have Shah Yafa, the Chov Yafa, and the city of Yafa all on one line. This is the walls of the old city of Yerushalayim surrounding us. And this was built 450 years ago by the Turks when they conquered Eretz Yisrael, who were built on the foundation of the walls that were here, Bisman Habayis. I should also mention that Rehov Yafa is the main street of Yerushalayim, and it is a border between the two Shvatim. On the left side of Rehov Yafa is Shevet Yehuda, on the right side of Rehov Yafa is Shevet Binyamin. And Rehov Yafa is the border of the two Shvatim. The tower ahead of us is called Migdal David, the citadel of David. It's a fortress built by the famous King Herod, who does Bisman Ba'asheni, to protect the city from attack along the western frontier. It has no connection to David HaMelech. It was built all Bisman Ba'asheni. Seeing the name was added on in a later period. In history it's known as Ham Migdal, the fortress, the tower. The section in front of us is called Yemin Moshe. One of the first Ashkenazi section built outside of the old city walls about 140 years ago by the famous Moses Montefiore. And he named it after himself, Yemin Moshe. The windmill in the middle of the section was built that the Yidden of Yemin Moshe should have parnasa, a livelihood. When the Yidden came back from Bavel, only 4,200 Yidden lived in Yerushalayim. The city was a very small city at the time of Nehemiah. The Yidden came back, and therefore the city was a small city. The Northern War, however, the period of this Man Ba'ashem was a 420-year period. And as the years went by, the city started to expand and to grow, but always constantly in the northern direction. And every time the city grew, they built new walls around the new part of the city. Yerushalayim has to have walls to protect, number one, and because of the Kedusha of Yerushalayim, the Tamais Sheni, the Neteravai, the Korban Pesach, the Kochim Kalim has to be eaten inside the wall, and then we're Kaddish the walls. So it came out that the northern part of Yerushalayim, at the time of the Churban Ba'asheni, there were three walls in the northern direction. Wall number one is what they call the broad wall in the old city. Wall number two is the wall of the old city that we see today surrounding Yerushalayim. Wall number three, the way I'm standing over here right behind us, is in wall number three. And this till here was Kedushas Yerushalayim, Bisman Ba'asheni in every what way. Why I'm standing over here now, Bisman Ba'asheni, when one was able to eat the Kochim Kalim and the Neteravai and the Master Sheni. So you'll be standing where this gas station is on the other side of the wall over here. You'll be outside of the walls of Yerushalayim, and of course you could not eat the Master Sheni and the Kochim Kalim. This wall is much more than you see with your eye. It continues on from over here. It goes between the houses all the way towards the end of Mei Shorim, where they told us on in Beis Medrash. Continues on under the street ahead of us. The third wall till here is Kedushas, Yerushalayim, in every what way, by the time of the Churban Bayis Sheni. We came to the cave of Shmuel Hanavi, which is better known to us in Tanakh as the Messiah Tzofim. And the Mefarshim explained that the Messiah is a plural Lashon Rabbim. There are two mountains called Rama, and in between the valley. This is mountain number 1. Over there is a black patch with houses behind it, the white houses, and that's Rama number 2 in the valley between, just like Mefarshim explained. That's how we see it. And there was a man, his name was Mr. Elkanah. He had 2 wives, Chan and Penina. He lived in those mountains further north in the Hori Ephraim. And then later on he decided he wanted to come back a little closer to Yerushalayim and the Messiah Tzofim. And b'mayada, he used to be on the regal to the Mishkan in Shiloh further north. And then he brought back gifts to his wives and his children. Penina had Chan and Penina. Penina had 10 children, brought back 10 for her. Chan had none, only 1 for herself. Chan was very embittered, she had no children. And therefore she asked the next time he goes, she wants to join him. And she went to the Mishkan in Shiloh, and she started davening for a child, and Eli Kohen saw that she was davening. And he gave her a bracha that she should come back next year with the child on her arm. She came back here to her home in the Messiah Tzofim. And 7 months later, Shmuel Navi was born. The Kom Shmuel, because of the combination of 2 words, Shoel Mekel, and Oiskebet and child, tried davening to Hashem to have. And as he grew a little older, she took him back to the Mishkan, and he became a Talmud Muvik of Eli HaKohen, and he remained in the Mishkan till the age of 39. Then he came back here to his home in Rama, and he became the Navi and the Manig and the leader of Klal Yisrael. From here he traveled all over, edge of east, west, north, and south to Mishpat the nation. He was a Navi and the leader of a nation for 13 years, from the age of 39 till the age of 52. He was the first of our Nevi'im. And the Hashpur of Nevuah first starts spread out over Eretz Yisrael under Shmuel Navi here and Rama. Before she explained it, give a marshal, somebody has a glass and he spills in water, keeps spilling and spilling, this overflows. The Hashpur of Nevuah from Rama, this overflow from here all over Eretz Yisrael. Even people who are not on the Madega that say Nevuah, they came in contact with the Kedusha of Rama. The Kedushas Hamakim, the place itself, had the effect of saying Nevuah. And then at the age of 52, he passed away. He buried down below in the cave under the building, and with his mother together, Chana. Over, you notice over here, the upper part of the structure, see there's a monument which is directly below the cave of Shmuel Hanavi. The Arabs have such a minig. Wherever there's a grove at a lower level, they built a monument directly over it. You see that this is a mosque where the Arabs pray, but it doesn't look like a mosque. This is a oblong building, long and narrow. The typical church architecture. This was built as a church building and converted into a mosque. The minig by Cave of Shmuel Hanavi, especially people who are looking for shidduchim, they come here and they daven, they make a neder, they admit Hashem when they become a chassan or a kala, then they come back to give kiddush, to give l'chaim. And Baruch Hashem, many shidduchim have been made because of this Ned or Tanai and the cave of Shmuel Navi. Okay, now surrounding the building of Shmuel Navi, see a lot of remains of excavations and old buildings and so on. What you see over here is all Goyish things. Now, according to the Christians, their theology is that they are the true Israelites. They inherited Klal Yisrael. So automatically, wherever is holy to the Jews, automatically became holy to the Christians. And since we're by the cave of Shmuel Navi now, which is a Mokum Kodesh, so they built a church on the spot. The building that we're standing on is a church building. Surrounding the church, they built a monastery. All the buildings you see over here is connected with the monastery on all sides of the building, and the hostels for the pilgrims, and the dormitories for the nuns and the monks, and stables for the horses and workshops. Everything that goes along with a large monastery, going back 900 years ago, time with the Crusaders, is what we see surrounding the building of Shmuel Navi. It has nothing to do with Shmuel Navi, nothing to do with the Beis Mikdash of that period. If you look at the building from the outside, you know the different sections of the building. Now this lower part of the building is all Crusaders stone. You notice over here. See this is a Crusader stone, a rim, and the middle protrudes. This building is 900 years old, built as a Crusader church. The whole lower part of the building, and the top part of the building is different. The upper part is different than the lower part. The other part going back, and then the first time of the First World War, the British came to attack and they destroyed the upper part of the building. And they rebuilt it in the 1920s. The bottom part of the building is all Crusader stones. It's 900 years old. The upper part is 70 years old. Different sections to the building. And 400 years ago, the Turks conquered. They converted the church, which it was, into a mosque, which it is to this very, very day, where the Arabs pray. Going through the panorama from right to left, this is an extremely beautiful place. All those on top of the hill over there to the right, we see those towers, and that's Harat Sofim and Harat Zaysim, those towers over there in the distance. As you go a little further to the left, you can see those white houses on the slope of the hill, and that's called French Hill, which is better known to us in Tanakh as Noiv Ira Kahanim. That's where the Mishkan was for 13 years under Shaul HaMelech. And Noiv Ira Kahanim until Shaul wiped out the city of Noiv, Derek Hademi, and so on. A little further to the left, you see the top of the hill over there, like a little whitish building on top of the hill, the highest hill in the distance, and that's called Givon. Givat Binyamin, Givat Shaul. This is where Shaul HaMelech was a king. This is where Shaul HaMelech was born, and he was a king. The incident of Pelagish Begiva took place over here in this town of Giva, where the whole Shevet Binyamin was wiped out at the end of Shoftim. A little further to the left, you can see the antennas on top of the mountain. In the distance, the antennas, that's called Neve Yaakov. It's been known to us in Tanakh as the town of Kfir, one of the 4 cities of the Givonim. Further to the left, you can see the black patch in the distance, behind these whitish houses. And that is the second Ramah, Ramah number 2. The Mosayim Sofim, a plural Lashon. All the way on top of the mountains over there, distance, further left, is Baal Chatzor, where a tremendous battle took place. Bisman Ba'isheni. Bisman Ba'isheni, a tremendous battle in the time of the Chanukah period between Yehuda Maccabee and the Yevonim, the Greeks, and Yehuda Maccabee was killed on Baal Chatzor. It says in Pesach that Yeshua ben Nun split the Yarden and came into Eretz Yisrael. And the first thing he did, he set up the Mishkan in Gilgal. Gilgal is next to the Jordan River, next to the Yarden, which is over there to the east. And the walls of Yericho came tumbling under. And then Yeshua went ahead and conquered the town of Ai and Beisel. After he conquered Ai and Beisel, group of people with torn clothing and torn shoes, old bread for Shimuk the water. They came to Gilgal. And they said, we heard of the Gavalak and Nisan that Moshe Rabbeinu made, Yeshua made, coming into Eretz Yisrael. Therefore, we want to make a peace pact with you, a Bris Shalom. Without asking too many questions, Yeshua ben makes a peace pact with these people. A few days go by and they start to hear rumor that these people aren't from a faraway place, where you come from, they're far away out of Yerushalayim. And they were traveling so long and so far, everything became torn and tattered. And Yeshua started to inquire and he found out these people aren't from a faraway place, they're right here from Givon. Right here in the valley over here, this is Givon. Just around this little hill in the valley is Givon. It's only a 12-hour walk from Gilgal next to the Jordan over here to Givon. The reason why I made the whole spiel with the closing and all, because it said in Pesach, from the 7 nations of Canaan, and wiped out. They said they're from a faraway nation, not from Yisrael. Yeshua was not obligated to keep this peace pact, but since it was made under false pretense, but since it was Indian of question, Hashem, the Jews do not keep their pledges and promises, so therefore Yeshua made Mechayt ve'etzim v'shoya ve'mayim to bring the water into the Mishkan and to bring the wood and so on. After Yeshua made the peace pact with these Gevinim, all the neighbors of Givon got terribly angry. The king of Yerushalayim, the king of Halachah, the king of Hebron, all the 5 towns surrounding all start to assemble here on a Wednesday night into the valley to attack the Gevinim. Yeshua maybe was conquered Yericho, small city, Ayin Beisa, but Givon, 4 powerful cities, Givon, Beitas, Kiryat Yearim, and the powerful walls and all, and you make a peace pact with Yeshua ben Nun. And late Wednesday night, all came to assemble to attack. The Givon seen it coming under attack. They right away send a messenger from here over the desert all the way towards Gilgal. Yeshua have a peace pact with you. Please come and help. On the late Thursday night, Yeshua starts to leave Gilgal with his armies. He arrives here by Friday morning in the valley. And he sees that the Gevinim are under attack. Yeshua starts to make a counteroffensive. As he makes his counteroffensive, the Goyim start to run to escape. And where do they run to? But Malad Bet Chorun, top of those hills. There's Malad Bet Chorun, Alit, and Tachtit, on top of the hills directly in front of us. Now, only on top of the hills, the Eibishter made a gewaldig nest. They had to throw down stones, men Hashemayim, on these Goyim. Unfortunately, this was just like radar missiles. Wherever the guy ran, the stone ran it and finally killed him. More were killed by the stone that fell down in Hashemayim on Bet Chorun. They were killed by the armies of Yeshua ben Nun. And all day Friday, they were fighting along the mountains. On this side of the mountain, on the other side of the hill, until late Friday afternoon. Yeshua looks up into the heaven, he sees the sun is starting to go down, it's coming to Chil Shabbos. Yeshua takes out the Sefer Torah, spreads it out in the valley in front of us, and davens to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the source of all the Torah was Makabel. And he learned, and he said, the Shem HaMafoidish, in Shemesh begiven dom, and the sun starts to stand still over Givon. Vayoreach, and the moon be'emik Ayalon, in the valley of Ayalon. On the other side of the hill over there in the distance to your left is the valley of Ayalon. Over here the sun was standing for 36 hours and the moon was over there to your left in the valley. And that's why it's called Shemesh. Shemesh stands for Shin Mem Shin, Shema Machal and Shabbos. Maybe it'll come to Chil Shabbos. And after Yeshua finally conquers these Goyim in battle as they ran towards Kiryat Yearim to the west, and then finally Yeshua lets the sun go down and the moon starts to come up. It says we come to a place where the Gewaldik Ness of Bet Chorun, where the stones came down on Hashemayim and killed the Goyim. We come to the place where Yeshua made the sun stand still. You must to make a bracha in each place. Baruch HaMokim she'osa nisim la'aveiseinu ba'mokim hazeh. One time Avner ben Ner, Ishboshesh general, met Yoav ben Tzruya, David general, where they meet, Al-Brecha shall Givon, and the water pools of Givon. And the water pool is still there, Ada Yoim, they're just like was the time of David and Melech. And one side of the pool was sitting Avner in his army, the other side of the pool was sitting Yoav in his armies. And Avner gets up and he goes over to Yoav and he says, let the Na'arim, the young soldiers, have a game, the Fanenu. It wasn't a game, but this is a lashon used in Pesach. And 12 young soldiers of Avner's army gets up, and 12 young soldiers of Yoav's army get up, and all 24 grab each other's heads simultaneously. They all take out their sword, and all 24 die at once on the Brecha shall Givon. The two armies start to fight each other, start to run towards the desert, towards the east. And Avner ben Ner sees how Ashur, the younger brother of Yoav ben Tzruya, who can run so swiftly, Ketzvi, has said like a deer, the field is counting, chasing him. He turns around to Ashur and says, don't chase me, take one of the younger soldiers and chase him or else you'll regret it. Of course, he did not listen. He kept chasing Avner. Avner sees his life is in danger. Avner takes out a sword and he kills Ashur over there to the east of the Brecha shall Givon. Two armies start to fight each other till the sun starts to rise in the morning, and then they start to separate. The Mishkan that was built by Moshe Rabbeinu in the desert was in 4 different places in Eretz Yisrael. The first 14 years it was in Gilgal next to the Jordan. Then they brought the Mishkan over to Shiloh, was there for 369 years until Eli HaKohen passed away. They brought the Mishkan over to Noiv Ira Kahanim, was there for 13 years until Shaul wiped out the city of Noiv. And then they brought the Mishkan over here to Givon. The Mishkan was here for 44 years until Shlomo became the king. And then he built the new Beis HaMikdash, and the Mishkan was a collapsible tent of curtains. He put it together and hid it in the new Beis HaMikdash. It says in Pesach in the beginning of Malachim Aleph that David Melech passes away. His son Shlomo now becomes the king. And as soon as he becomes the king, he gets up and he goes to the Mishkan in Givon to be Makav the Kabbanis. And he goes from where he lived in this royal palace in Yerushalayim over the hills towards Givon. And that comes into Givon, it says in Pesach, he was Makav 1,000 Kabbanis b'yoyim echad mishum ahavas Hashem, the love of the Yebishter. When one is Makav a Korban, he has to stay over a mitzvah of Lina and a Korban Yochid. And Shlomo was a tzaddik, so therefore he remained overnight in Givon. And as he sleep, Yebishter comes to him in a cholim. And it says, Shlomo, you are Makav 1,000 Kabbanis b'yoyim echad mishum ahavas Hashem, so if I want to give you a gift, and you can select what gift do you want. You can have chokhmah, wisdom, or you could have riches, ashidus, or covered honor. Shlomo said, since I'm so young, only 12 years old, and the whole purpose of the king is to mishpat. So Rebbe should give me seich, give me chokhmah. I should be able to mishpat the nation properly. And so the Rebbe said, since you selected chokhmah, who wasn't for your benefit, but for the benefit of Klal Yisrael, you meant the Shem Shemayim, I'll give you all 3. The chokhmah and the ashidus and the covered, all 3. One thing Shlomo did not receive was long life. He did not receive, and he only lived to the age of 52. He was a king for 40 years, and he became a king when he was 12. And he gets up in the morning here in Givon, and he hears the singing of the birds in the language of the birds. He hears the barking of the dogs in the language of the dogs. He knew the Abishai gave him chacham. He gets into his royal chariot and Givon and gallops over the hills back to his royal palace in Yerushalayim. As soon as he arrives in his royal palace, who's there? 2 ladies with a baby waiting for his return. One woman said, this is my baby. The woman says, this is my baby. Yeshua Shapatkin, whose baby this is? Shlomo says, we'll make this fair and square. We'll take a knife, we'll cut this baby in half. One half to one mother, half to the other mother. One woman says, Chalila v'chas. Give a large child to the other woman says, yes, cut the child. Now she loved the mother to child. This is the mother, one is not. And of course the Chachma had spread all over, just all the kings and queens and leaders of the nation came to hear the Chachma and the Mishalim of Shlomo HaMelech. Not only had the Chachma ready, but he had the covered and the Yeshidas, all 3. And this is where Shlomo received his Chachma that night here in Givon. We came to the other side of Shmuel Navi facing Yerushalayim. It was always known to have 2 protectors, Kever Rachel to the south and Kever Shmuel to the north, 2 protectors of Yerushalayim. And it's interesting to note that the Kaisel Maravi in the old city in 1967 came into Jewish hands on the yahrzeit of Shmuel Hanavi on Chav Tes Iyar. And we all felt at the time that was in his chus. He's the protector of the city. Yerushalayim has never been conquered unless this mountain was conquered first. This was the lead into Yerushalayim in all generations, no matter what period. It was Churban Bayis Rishon, Churban Bayis Sheni, and the Chashmonon battles, and the Turkish battles, and the 48 war, the 67 war, all took place here from Kever Shmuel Hanavi, the lead into the city. Of course, we have the whole Yerushalayim laid out like the palm of our hand in front of us. Over there we can see the Binyan Ye'umah behind it, the high tall building is the Hilton Hotel. Over there is the road to Yerushalayim. The Medrash tells us, in the time of the Churban Abayis, the Ruach of Shmuel HaNavi went out from Ramah to the Mokim HaMikdash, and he swore that he'll never leave until there'll be a new Beis HaMikdash standing on that mountain. Shmuel HaNavi is constantly crying for the Churban Abayis and davening for the binyan of our new Beis HaMikdash B'Korev. So now we're by the cave of Shimon HaTzadik. And Shimon HaTzadik, he was a Kohen Gadol in the second base of Mikdash for 40 years. He was from Mishi'ori Anshe Knesset Hagdela. I knew what they were, the Tzaddikim and Gedolim, so lived a time. Chum Bayis Rishon went to Golos for 70 years and came back to build the second base of Mikdash, as in the Nehemiah, Shaltiel, Mordechai from the Megillah. And since Shimon HaTzadik was younger than the others, they overlapped him. It was called the Mishoy, the leftover. He said, "Our Shloisha Devarim were the Moimed." The world stands on three pillars: Al Torah, Al Avodah, Al Gimlus Chasodim. Torah, of course, means learning. Avodah means the sacrifices, which we don't have, and the davening is in its place. And the Gemara comes to do favors from one person to the other. And also buried in this cave is his pupils. Atikin Shesech Kibum Shimon HaTzadik. Yisrati Mishamash Yisrael Manas L'Kal Paras. One doesn't do mitzvahs for reward. And Mishamash Yisrael Shaloya Manas L'Kal Paras. One does mitzvahs L'Shem Shemayim. B'Yimadu Shemayim Malech. One should have fear of the Almighty. The Gemara tells us that Shimon HaTzadik was a Kohen Gadol in the second base of Mish for 40 years. And during that period, he had the nest of the Ner Maravi. They put enough oil to burn 12 hours, and the burnt in the menorah burned 24 hours. And after he passed away, that miracle stopped. On Yom Kippur, they had a red piece of wool in the Heichal. If it turned white, it means Hashem forgave the Avedis, and if it remained red, they have to do tshuva yet. And the Gemara says during the 40 years of Shimon HaTzadik, it always turned white. And after those 40 years, sometimes white, and sometimes it remained red. The Geidel, the lottery for the Sel Azazel, and during the 40 years of Shimon HaTzadik, it always came out on the right side for the Korban, which was a good sign. Yemin is always Chesed and Rachamim. And after those 40 years, sometimes to the right and sometimes to the left. When Alexander the Great came to attack Yerushalayim, Shimon HaTzadik found the clothes of the Kohen Gadol and went out to greet him. And as Alexander saw Shimon, he got off his chariot and bowed down to him. So they asked people, I said, the great emperor is bowing down for a Jew. So Alexander answered, every time he goes into war, he always sees a form of Shimon HaTzadik in front of him. Only the schus of Shimon HaTzadik, he was able to conquer the entire world. It was always a minute to have an air neshama burning here in the cave of Shimon HaTzadik. And years ago there was a gab in charge, and there wasn't enough oil. The oil that was there started to burn for days and days until the Gabba finally went back to replenish the supply of oil. The same type of nest, like the Ner Chanukah or the Ner Maravi, the oil burnt a long time, also happened here in the cave of Shimon HaTzadik. Years ago there was a tzaddik, and the Rav of Yerushalayim, his name was Reb Moshe El-Ghazi, and there was a big drought, and there was no rain for many months. People came to me asking if they should daven for rain. So the Rav Moshe El-Ghazi said everyone should take raincoats, and they started to go to the cave here of Shimon HaTzadik. And there was an Arab policeman who saw the Yidna run going with raincoats in the middle of the heat, and the sun is shining. He started to laugh. And as they came here, this Rav Moshe El-Ghazi laid down on the ground next to the monument, and he started to daven, and it started to drizzle. It came to sound that it's drizzling. He said, no, we need real rain. And then it started to rain heavily. Everyone should put on the raincoat, he said, and they went back to the city. The next day, this Arab policeman came to the Moshe El-Ghazi that he wanted him a guy if he saw such a miracle. This is considered the second holiest place in Yerushalayim, after the Kaisel Maravi as a Mokum Kodesh, is the cave of Shimon HaTzadik. In this cave, there are three monuments. This is where I'm standing here, is the monument of Shimon HaTzadik. A little bit to the side is the wife of Shimon HaTzadik. Here you can see the name Neshama on the wall. That's here all the time. Behind the curtains is another cave, which is the pupil of Shimon HaTzadik. And the wall behind where the mikveh was is on the background, which is broken up today. Now here by the Shimon HaTzadik, we see the mikveh. On the left side we have the window, which is the opening into the mikveh. On the right side we see the canal, where the rainwater used to flow through the canal to fill up the mikveh. In 1982, a very crippled woman on a wheelchair, wheeled in by her daughter, came into the cave of Shimon HaTzadik and asked for the mikveh. They asked, what does she need the mikveh for? So she said she had a dream last night that she should go to the cave of Shimon HaTzadik, and by the mikveh she should daven for the Yerushalayim. They picked her up on the bench that one sees in front of the mikveh, and she put her head into the opening of the mikveh in the window, and she on the windowsill. She lay there about 2 hours, and she was davening and she was crying. After about 2 hours, she turns around to her daughter, and she said, "I feel movement in my legs." She jumped down from the high bench and she walked out of the cave. Facing the cave of Shimon HaTzadik, we have the cave of the Ramban, the famous Rishon, the Moshe ben Nachman. He came from Spain about 800 years ago, and he lived in Yerushalayim for a period of time. While he lived in Yerushalayim, he used this cave, which is north of Yerushalayim, as a place to misboded and to meditate and to write his svarim privately by himself in the Mo'arat HaRamban. And now we came to the other side of Har HaTzofim, and we see a desert. This is called Midbar Yehuda, the Judean desert. And this extends from Har HaTzofim all the way towards the Jordan River and further south towards Sinai and the Suez Canal and all. The reason why this is a desert is because it has no rain from above and no irrigation from below, and that's why it's a desert. The other side of Har HaTzofim, which is all green, Yerushalayim, has 600 millimeters of rain in normal winter. This side only has 50 millimeters of rain. Har HaTzofim is the stopping point for the clouds, all the rain left on one side and nothing on the other side. And that's why this is a desert. It says when Mashiach is going to come, the whole desert is going to grow and develop. The desert will start to flourish and grow with fruits and springs. The reason why we're going to find water in the desert we never knew existed. And you notice that there are mountains and valleys in the desert. It says in Pesach, these mountains are going to become lower and the valleys are going to become higher. It will all be flat land. And with the development and with the growth and the flourishing of the desert, to make it easier for the Mekabe to Nitchei Amma Yisrael, reading to come back to the desert. Yeshaya calls out in Shabbos Nachamu, Panu derech bamidbar, make way through the deserts for the Asas Shvatim to return into Eretz Yisrael. So these deserts we're looking at right here. One can see the Shabbos Seder. See these poles with a string on it? See a wire on it from one pole to the other. Till here is the end of the Shabbos Seder of Yerushalayim. Till here one is allowed to carry on Shabbos. On the other side of the pole, of course, one cannot. In front of us we have right now on Har HaTzofim. Tzofim means to see, because here we see the entire Yerushalayim laid out in the palm of our hand. Whatever's in front of us is the Jewish section of the city. Whatever's behind us in the background is the Arab section. The time of the Beis HaMikdash, when Yidden were l'regel to the Beis HaMikdash, and since Yerushalayim is in the southern portion of Eretz Yisrael, went lived to the north. They traveled from north to south towards Yerushalayim. The first place they would reach coming into the city would be Har HaTzofim. And they would then see Yerushalayim as we are seeing it now, except that they saw a Beis HaMikdash which we do not. But the entire outlet of Yerushalayim, as we are seeing the geography, the mountains and valleys we are seeing now as they saw it then. The halacha, Har HaTzofim is the same halacha as Yerushalayim in many ways. It's machlokes Rashi and Tosfos all over Shas. Wherever it says Tzofim, one learns in Har HaTzofim, the other learns that Tzofim means to see. As long as you see Yerushalayim, even from a different direction, it has the same halacha. In 1947, the UN partitioned Eretz Yisrael, part of the Jews and part of the Arabs. The partition plan was scrapped and the war broke out between the Jews and the Arabs in 1948. at the ceasefire of this war, whatever was in Jewish hands remained part of the state of Israel, whatever remained in Arab hands became part of Jordan. So happened that everything surrounding Haratzofim all remained in Arab territory. On top of this mountain, which was like an island, there were two important institutions that was in Jewish hands, the Hebrew University and the Hadassah Hospital. The government wanted to continue operating these institutions, and beginning of 49, a group of doctors and nurses were coming up through the Arab territory, and they were ambushed, and 77 doctors and nurses were killed. And then the government realized the danger involved, and they built the Hadassah and the university in the new city. As a matter of principle, the government not want to give away land that's held by the Jews to the Arabs. A new agreement was made that a group of Jewish soldiers would always be stationed on top of Haratzofim, and every second Wednesday, a new group would come up, and the ones that were stationed would go back to the city. Under the agreement, nothing allowed to be brought in, only food and clothing and medical supplies, but no military supplies were permitted. And so therefore, when the 6-Day War broke out, the important battle of Givat Tachmoshet Ammunition Hill, which is on the bottom of Haratzofim, was so important to save these soldiers that were stranded on Haratzofim, surrounded on all sides by Arab territory with a very, very limited supplies of armaments.
The very famous Gemara in the end of Malchus tells us that Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Shua and Belazar came to Haratzofim, to where we are now, and they saw the mock community as we are seeing it. And they saw an Avodah Zarah on the Kachi HaKadoshim. And Rabbi Kiva starts to laugh, and the Chacham start to cry. Chacham asks Rabbi Kiva, why are you laughing? Rabbi Kiva says, why are you crying? He says, because we have to cry. We see the Churban Abayas, where the Kohen God went to the Kachi HaKadoshim only once a year. And here we see now the Shiualim Hilchu Boi. And the desecration, of course we have to cry. So Rabbi Kiva said, that's why I'm laughing. If all the Nevuah of the Churban has been fulfilled, we are assured that because of the Nevuah of the binyan of our new Beis HaMikdash will also be fulfilled. And that's why I'm laughing, Rabbi Kiva answered.
When in Eretz Yisrael, join our guided tours of the country, the most comprehensive, in-depth Torah tours of Eretz Yisrael, with all the history, Chazal, Tanakh, and Kivrei Tzadikim. Call us for a meaningful experience in Eretz Yisrael. Tour number 1, coastal tours in Old City. Tour number 2, Miron, Tzfas, Tveria, Amuka. Tour number 3, Megiddo, Bet She'orim, our Tanakh tour. Tour number 4, Hebron, Kibbutz Rachel, Har HaZeisim, Kibbutz Shmuel HaNovi, Shimon HaTzadik. Tour number 5, Holy Lane Hotel, Stalactite Cave, Wonder Road. Tour number 6, Golan Heights. Tool number 7, Mitzada, En Gedi, Qumran, and the Dead Sea. Call Pesach Levy and Yerushalayim 5384603 or 03570071 or 054594857.